The impacts of the collapse of the so-called simp economy have stretched from last year until now. It wasn't anything pleasant, more like a free-fall collapse. In reality, the simp economy is nothing more than a business model where women do the consuming and men pick up the bill, in economic terms, a transfer payment. If we broaden the view, even living off your parents is a form of transfer payment. For the market, it doesn't matter whose money it is, what matters is who's willing to spend it. As long as there's willingness, or the necessity, to spend, products can always be created around that consumer group. Flowers and lipsticks work, real estate works too. And in fact, the two have many subtle connections. For example, both are framed as essential needs while actually propping up false ones. The term simp first became popular around 2016, coincidentally the peak year of the real estate boom and the height of consumerist frenzy. Now, with the collapse of that economy, a gap has opened in the consumer market. From the perspective of merchants and the market economy, internal demand must be filled, and the internal cycle must keep turning. If the simp economy no longer turns, and transfer payments hit a bottleneck, then new product categories are needed to absorb that pent-up demand. And so the question arises, who will take over this economy? One curious trend is that, after the collapse, e-commerce platforms began spinning marketing narratives around a so-called male awakening, trying to ride that wave. To be honest, testing the market isn't the problem, but reusing the same tired slogans is just pathetic. Phrases like, "A real man knows how to please himself," or "men should learn to love themselves." It sounds both familiar and absurd. When the simp economy was alive and well, every day was about celebrating female awakening. Now that it's collapsed, suddenly it's all about male awakening. The very same audience, once brainwashed by consumerism, is still there waiting, as if the internet has no memory. And as for results, they've been more for show than for substance. Take this year's mid-year shopping festival as an example. Total online sales fell 6.9% year-on-year, the first decline in 16 years. And if the promotion period hadn't been extended, the fall would have been even sharper. In fact, intentionally or not, merchants and platforms have already made adjustments that seem to cater more to male consumption habits. Cancelling pre-orders, a race to the bottom on pricing, reducing dependence on influencers, pushing top streamers aside, shifting focus from brand effect to product quality. Even so, e-commerce growth remains stalled. Categories like beauty, skincare, cosmetics, and snacks are already showing negative growth. You could say the her economy is in decline, but it's far from true that the his economy has awakened. And there's a reason why male consumption can't replace female consumption. The female economy rests on two pillars: high markups and strong repeat purchases. High markups are the result of years of consumerist marketing, like diamonds, forever valuable. A face mask that costs cents to produce can be sold for tens or even hundreds. A lipstick worth a couple of dollars to make can retail for hundreds, thanks to brand value. Don't ask why. People aren't buying the product, they're buying the brand and the status. Cheap items only serve as footnotes for big brand marketing. And if high markups are the outcome of rampant consumerism, repeat purchases are its very foundation. The her economy became a system because it relies so heavily on this trait. Clothes must be bought season after season, year after year. Last year's style can't meet this year's taste. Handbags must be bought constantly, not for practicality, but for collectible value, like fashion's version of NFTs. Beauty, nails, eyelashes, all of these are an ongoing assembly line, because the pursuit of beauty is framed as innate to women, summed up by the motto, "Know how to please yourself." High markups, paired with tailored marketing discourse, combined with repeat purchases, this is the foundation of the female economy. That viral chart, many have seen it. Teenage girls, children, young wives, the elderly, pets, men. Every consumer group, except men, shares those two traits: high markups and strong repeat purchases. Now compare this to men's spending habits. They're like a shredder for consumerism. Can the male economy replace the simp economy? It can't. It doesn't have the capacity. What do men seek? Durability and cost-effectiveness. Graphics cards, appliances, cars, fishing gear. Every component is quantifiable, leaving little room for inflated pricing. And most are one-time purchases, lasting 3 to 5 years, with no significant repeat demand. This strict focus on cost-benefit prevents the formation of a self-sustaining economic ecosystem. Moreover, men's consumption habits are linked not just to their social roles, but also to how consumerism has spent decades stigmatizing them to inflate the female market. This is why the collapse of the simp economy is, above all, a shift in social perception. You can feel it in Valentine's Day sales, in weddings, in birth rates. For the broader market, as the overall economy tightens, the solution becomes clear. Extract money even from the most conservative pockets, men's. E-commerce's chosen solution was to compete on low prices, but with limited success. So another question arises: are there no male products that also carry high markups and repeat purchase potential? In fact, there are, and they're common: cigarettes, alcohol, chewing tobacco. These do fit the criteria. But there's a big problem: there's little room for the market to manipulate, replicate, or scale them. They can't form a full economic ecosystem. Still, by following this logic, it becomes easier to identify which products could take over and become the successors of the simp economy. Take Japan, for example. 30 to 40 years ago, Japan already experienced the rise and fall of its own simp economy. In the 1980s and 1990s, amid rapid economic growth and the real estate bubble, consumerism spread like wildfire. Women, as the main force of the consumer market, received enormous attention, and merchants launched a flood of products and services tailored to them. Advertising stopped selling products and started exalting female value. This atmosphere created the illusion of a female awakening, and feminism surged. Soon came what was called romance capitalism, in which women's value reached unprecedented heights. The new women of the high Z era would go shopping with 3 men, one as a driver, one as a meal ticket, and one as an ATM. That was the famous 3 wallets phenomenon. The new women of the high Z era would go out accompanied by 3 men, one as a driver, one as a meal ticket, and one as a walking ATM. This was the famous 3 wallets phenomenon. But in 1991, the real estate bubble burst. In just 6 months, the market lost 70% of its value. Unfinished buildings and abandoned lots appeared everywhere, and the debt was pushed onto ordinary people. 3 generations of the same family became trapped in loan crises, and society plunged into despair. When there's money, you can talk about supply and demand. When there isn't, all that's left is survival. With the collapse of the bubble, social conservatism came back with force. In the decades that followed, the labor market shifted dramatically and, combined with the gender tensions left over from the bubble years, the percentage of men unwilling to marry surpassed that of women. The simp economy collapsed for good. Young people began avoiding marriage and children, the so-called high Z dropouts emerged, and what became known as the low-desire society took shape. Yet even amid the crisis, one industry managed to bounce back and capture the scattered energy of the simp economy: female idol groups, like AKB48. Called star groups, they set themselves apart from traditional entertainers who only appeared on TV and billboards. Idols sold an emotional economy and close interaction, filling the spiritual void left by the collapse of the previous model. In practice, it wasn't that these groups saved the simp economy. Rather, they catered to men's lost fantasies. Another sector that thrived after the collapse was the adult entertainment industry. During the crisis, Japan's sex services market expanded explosively, reaching $60 billion in 2000. That was equal to 1% of Japan's GDP, on par with the country's military spending. It was even said that, on average, 1 in 20 Japanese women worked in the industry, showing the sheer scale of the phenomenon. This was how the simp economy transformed. When supply and demand shift, new industries step in to take its place. Something similar happened in South Korea. After the miracle on the Han River and the rise of the female economy, tensions between men and women also grew. On the surface, it looked like empowerment, but underneath, the logic was the same. It's no coincidence that to this day, Korean girl groups continue to rely on sexuality. Capital has never cared about morality or ideology, only profit. Whenever the simp economy collapses, a new system emerges to fill the gap. These flashy, even vulgar products become, in practice, the true heirs of the model. In China, because of its late start, female idol groups repeatedly failed. The idol market there still revolves around monetising the male image. But slowly, change is happening. Last year, a Steam game became a phenomenon. Damn, I'm Surrounded by Beauties, an interactive visual novel with real actresses. The plot was simple. The protagonist experiences romantic encounters with 6 women. The production quality was minimal, but precisely because it was straightforward, it struck a chord with male audiences. In just 2 months, the game grossed over $80 million, and today it has already passed $100 million. It became a milestone in virtual products. Afterward, countless competitors appeared, and within 6 months they were dominating the charts. A similar phenomenon happened with suggestive content influencers. Before, they lived off views and tips. Now they've shifted to private, paid relationship models. Live streams running 24/7, with every viewer greeted as brother, reveal just how explosive the demand has become, something unimaginable before the collapse of the simp economy. When users start paying for virtual emotional value, it's a clear sign that real emotional relationships are falling apart. Even more telling was the services sector. A home visit massage 020, online to offline, app reported that in 2023 it generated 2.15 billion yuan in transactions, nearly 150% growth. Orders surpassed 10 million, up 130%, with more than 10 million active users. The number of registered providers soared by 1,100%, reaching 30,000. This app was founded in 2018, apparently too late for the original 020 boom. But in just 3 years, it skyrocketed from 25,000 orders to 10 million, a 400x increase. And it's still growing. According to statistics, 91.8% of its users are men. Its branding and marketing are clearly aimed at a male audience. Today, it's seen as one of the first companies to profit directly from the collapse of the simp economy. The succession of this model turned out to be simple and straightforward. While e-commerce was still trying to compete on price and quality, men's consumption habits had already chosen an alternative path. In practice, when we talk about the collapse of this economy, we're really talking about a feeling of rupture. It collapsed, but the money transfers continue. It found substitutes, but individual needs remain ignored. Nothing has actually changed. We live in a calculated age. Society defines your productive value, the market defines your purchasing power, and public opinion defines your emotional worth. The simp is defined. The goddess is defined. The names are just shells. Underneath, we're all raw material, like crops waiting to be harvested. The only difference is that while some are still feeling the sting of betrayal, others are already swimming laps in the very sewage of that betrayal.
The simp economy has collapsed, but don't think this is an exclusively Asian phenomenon. If today's video dove into China, Japan, and South Korea, it's worth looking at the other side of the map as well. The West loves to portray itself as civilized, rational, and modern, but when it comes to emotional consumption, the logic is not only the same in some cases, it's even more aggressive. Just take a look. While in East Asia, the collapse of the her economy gave rise to idols, interactive games, and 020 services, in the West, we have the billion-dollar industry of Instagram and OnlyFans influencers, reality shows that turn romantic drama into profit-making entertainment, and dating apps that sell matches as if they were emotional currency. The difference is that over there, the market still bothers to create long-term narratives, while here, the strategy is to drain everything as fast as possible, as if every like, every photo, every interaction were the last drop of attention left on the planet. It's ironic. The West criticizes Asian consumerism and the Chinese simps, but turns a blind eye to its own mechanisms, which are often even more ruthless. Because at least in Japan, China, or South Korea, there's still some attempt to disguise the process under the cover of tradition, idols, or cultural romanticization. In the West, exploitation is raw and exposed. It's the ordinary girl who suddenly becomes a virtual goddess on TikTok. It's the lonely young man paying subscriptions to receive prepackaged attention in a DM. It's the same transfer of money disguised as human connection, only faster, harsher, and with no pretense. And here comes the provocation. Is the West really ahead of Asia, or has it simply fallen even deeper into the same hole? Because when everything is measured in likes, clicks, and subscriptions, there's no longer space to debate whether we're talking about men or women. In the end, everyone becomes a product. This may be the most uncomfortable reflection. The East has its idols, its games, and its alternative economies to replace the collapsed one. The West has its westernized version of the same spectacle, only supercharged by algorithms that know more about you than you do yourself. In the end, there's no real difference. We're all simps for a system that only changes its mask according to culture, but never its essence. And this is where I want to hear from you. Has Asia simply anticipated what the West is already experiencing, or have we, without realizing it, been quicker to embrace this theater? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and let me know in the comments, who do you think is worse off, Asia or the West? See you in the next video.